Hello, everybody. Okay, what I'm gonna do today is basically it's gonna be a review of the Street Fighter versus Tekken Fightpad. Okay, I've seen a lot of different reviews on this joystick. None of them really seem to help or explain a lot about the stick before I bought it. So they just say, "Oh, it's a really good stick, and it's like it's like an upgrade from the PlayStation 3 joystick. I like it. It's great." That really didn't help me just by telling me that. So hopefully this video will help you. I'm gonna try to explain a little bit more about it. Now let's start with this. Let's start with the D-pad. At first glance, I was kind of skeptical about the D-pad. By looking at it, if you can see it, it looks humongous. Just by looking at the side of it, it looks like it's sticking out a long way from the joystick. It just looks big. It looks like it's not going to work. I know if you can see it. It just looks humongous. But what it actually is that it's actually, I heard one guy call it a floating D-pad. What it basically is this. It is this, but condensed down to a D-pad so you can have a lot more control over it. If you look at it, it's basically this. Like, when you're playing some fighting games, especially Street Fighter, it's easier to do some moves by using the thumb pad. But of course, this is sticking up a little too high, and and your fingers, thumbs slip off. It's real hard to control using this. It's a lot more accurate than the D-pad, but it's very hard to control using this. So Mad Catz created, what they did was basically they came up with the idea of making this, but just condensing it down to a D-pad, making it smaller and putting a D-pad on it so you could control it. And that's what this is. That's why it looks like this. It's so big, it's humongous. It controls like this. So that's what this is. And let's go to the buttons. The buttons respond really well. I've been playing Soul Calibur on it. I played these other 3 games on it, which I'm going to talk about how they responded in a minute. But the buttons respond a lot better than the regular PlayStation joystick buttons. And what I mean is that sometimes for the people that play a lot of fighting games and get real into it, sometimes you'll press the PlayStation buttons and they won't respond. You'll be like, I pressed the button, there's nothing to happen. That happens a lot with the regular PlayStation buttons because I guess they weren't designed for that kind of, high stress or whatever, but they don't respond sometimes. But these do. They respond. They respond just fine. But, this joystick does take a little bit to get used to because it has these extra 2 buttons right here on the end. So you'll find yourself going from these 2 all the way to these 2 by mistake, but because it takes a little bit getting used to, just the buttons. It takes getting used to. And also, if you play a lot of fighting games with this, you'll notice that there's a lag in the PlayStation 3 joystick. Now, there's a slight lag in it. Some people say, well, I don't notice it. But if you play a lot of fighting games, you're a real fighter, you have noticed a slight lag in the PlayStation 3 joystick. You might have thought it was just you or you was tripping or something. But no, you're not just tripping. It is a lag in the joystick. But with this joystick, there's no lag. There's not a lag in it. It works just fine. It's not a lag in the joystick. It's real good joystick. It's not a lag in it. It responds. Like I said, it just takes some getting used to. And the D-pad, like I said, is basically this, but condensed down to a D-pad so you can control it. That's why it looks big. But it actually is pretty comfortable. It feels kind of like one of those old Sega D-pads or one of the old regular Xbox D-pads. You can compare it to that. If you got like an old regular Xbox controller, not the or the 360. Feels kind of like a 360 D-pad or the old Xbox D-pad. Feels kind of like that, but it has bigger grooves on it. So, it helps to control it a lot better. But it really feels kind of like an old Xbox D-pad. But you can control it a lot more. It's a lot more responsive. It's real easy to do a fireball motion. Most you know what I'm talking about. And all-you-can motion. It's real easy to do those motions. They come out perfectly. Especially when you're playing games like Soul Calibur. Those motions come out real easy. And this is the new game, Persona 4. It responds perfectly in this. Responds real good. Responds real good in Soul Calibur 2. Soul Calibur 4 responds real good in this. Now this game, it does not respond well in this game. But I don't know if this is just a developer flaw, but the PlayStation, it responds better than the PlayStation 3 joystick. It responds better than this. But, it's still a little hard to play in Blaze Blue. I think that's just Blaze Blue, because when I played Persona 4, the new game, it responds perfectly. It responds perfect. It responds, way better than what the PlayStation joystick did. Because I can do moves easily that I couldn't do with the PlayStation joystick. Responds perfectly. So I think that's got something to do with this game. Because this game really doesn't respond that well to the regular joysticks at all. It responds better to an arcade stick. Blaze Blue does. I think it was designed on the arcade stick. You almost really have to have an arcade stick to play it, So with Blaze Blue, it's really not going to replace the arcade stick. You might want to pick up one if you're an arcade player with Blaze Blue. It's not going to replace it. You're going to have to get an arcade stick, which I know what I'm talking about. I got one, so it's been modded too. So it's not just a regular arcade stick. As you see, I got a bat top on it, the sandwall parts in it. So I know what I'm talking about. This is a good arcade stick. It's been modified, so got sandwall parts. So I know what I'm talking about on it. But that's joystick, and it also has this on the back where you can switch between the right and left analog sticks. Also has the turbo. I think you can do the turbos for a single button. Like if you press turbo and hold it. And hold that single button. Not entirely sure. I did it earlier, but I'm not entirely sure if it was just for a single button. I'm pretty positive it was. But I just got the joystick. So I haven't did a lot of digging into the turbos. I really don't use turbos. I don't know why you want to use that in a fighting game other than to cheat. But I really haven't messed with the turbos a lot. But like I said, the buttons are real responsive. They don't slip. And they respond. When you press them, they respond. Like I said, the PlayStation 3 joystick, when you're playing fighting games and you really playing it good, a lot of times you press a button and it won't respond. Especially the circle button. I guess it gets wore out, but I have a new PlayStation joystick that does the same thing. You know, you'll slide that circle button, you'll tap it real fast with your thumb, and it won't respond. You know, but this one, it responds. You tap it real quick with your thumb, it'll respond good. But like I said, one of the major things about it is the D-pad. It just looks humongous. It just looks that way, but it is comfortable. Joystick is small. It's light. It feels kind of like an old Genesis joystick. The cord is pretty light. You don't even notice that the joystick is plugged up. You know, the cord is kind of short though. You know, if you got a real big living room, you might want to consider getting an extension because the cord is kind of short. The rumble is pretty good. It's not that hard. It's not too hard. It's not too soft. It's okay. You know, the rumble is okay in it. But, you know, like I said, it's a pretty good joystick. The cord is not that long on it. You know, it's about between 6 and 8 feet long. It's really, you know, if your living room is super big, you know, you either gonna have to sit up to play it. You can, you know, you're not gonna be lounged back playing it because, like I said, the cord is not that long. You may want to come home see if it's long enough for you. If it's not, pick up an extension. It is $29 at GameStop. Now it's $29. A lot of people selling them on Amazon for like $30, $40. Don't buy it from there. They just overcharge you for it. Joystick is only $29 at GameStop. Go pick it up. I just bought it. $29. Yeah, GameStop. There's your price right there. $29. Go pick it up. And like I said about Blaze Blue, I think it's just something with the game. Neither one of these, I mean, this one worked better than this joystick, but it really doesn't work for Blaze Blue. If you a professional player, Blaze Blue, you compete and all that, you're going to have to get a arcade stick. You need to pick an arcade stick up because, you know, this is not going to replace the arcade stick for that game. But for, you know, just about every other fighting game, the major ones, like I said, the new Persona works great. New Soul Calibur works great. You know, all the buttons respond, the controls respond. You know, it doesn't slip. You know, when I do the move, it responds to exactly what I just did. The D-pad is responsive. It just looks huge. It just looks humongous. It looks like it's going to be uncomfortable. But actually it's not. I thought the same thing when I first looked at it. I was like, damn, that's big. But it's actually pretty comfortable, you know. It just looks humongous. The faceplate is not replaceable. I mean, if you wanted to modify it, I guess you can go to Kinko's and buy a skin or something and do it yourself. But, you know, that's if you just really hated what's on there. All right. Thanks a lot. That's it.